Okay, so here is the other part of that video because obviously I can't send a video in Messenger. So I'm going to try doing it this way because I can send it longer this way, I know for a fact. Anyways, in regards to the video, I just rather chat about this instead of like texting it. So I definitely agreed with a good amount of stuff that he said. But where I get tied up in is what I feel off of them. And for me, it just reminded me of some old familiar stuff that I've seen within my own religious circles, and outside of religious circles. So for me, I couldn't swallow that whole pill because I have seen, people have experiences, so to speak, on so many different realms of the perspective, the perspective. I can't say it. Spectrum. I'm trying to think of perspection or forget what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm trying to say, but it's not coming out my words. Anyways, I have seen so many different varieties of people having experiences on all different walks of life, all different types of philosophies and religious mindsets and all of that kind of stuff. And they all claim to come out that their experience was proof that their view is the correct view. And from the very get-go, I just had that same kind of gut feeling off of him when not to say that what he had to say was wrong or bad or that he wasn't genuine or anything like that. But it was just, I don't know how to explain it. But I'm trying to get my words here. It's better an in-person conversation, but I know you're busy and we don't usually get much chat time in. So, and I'd rather this be kind of more in person. My brain is farting. I'm losing my flow. Trying to think, rewind here. So, yes, I understand that certain people on, like his other experience with being on the ayahuasca and having different encounters and different things like that, I can look at that in more than one way. First of all, I'm not always overly keen on people trying those type of plant medicines and stuff like that. I'm kind of a little bit undecided fully on the whole thing. But I do know that if you're not cleaning out your energy and you're not cleaning the vessel out prior to an experience like that, you can have good and not so good experiences on it. So there's always that too. But that said, he had said within that experience that he had, the beautiful peace and all of that he felt like from the angels and different things like that, seemed to me personally to be a genuine experience. Now, I could be totally wrong, but his initial explaining of that experience was that he was having a genuine, beautiful experience with some entities on the other side, whether they were the angels and stuff like that. So I believe that people have had genuine experiences on that, connecting with the other side and angels and different lost loved ones and different things, and have had beautiful experiences. On the flip side, I've heard of other, there's other stuff too. But when he came out of that, the way I looked at it, because he said he was on a high and he had this beautiful, peaceful feeling, like just a passion for, you know what I mean? So I heard that first thing, because usually when it's kind of like what you'd call in Christian circles an angel of light masquerading as light when it's actually darkness, there's kind of more of an underlying something that's not quite settling. They seem loving and beautiful and all that, but there's something more underlying. The way he came across to me, at least from what I understood, was that it was a genuine, beautiful, like, oh my gosh. But it doesn't seem so much that the experience was wrong in itself or not genuine or pure from pure spirit beings, but it was more or less how he ran with that experience after he had it, right? So he began to focus on it, and trying to do more, and then he got a spiritual ego with it, and like, you know, I can't remember all the things that he said, because you know how the memory thing is right now, but I remember the feel of what I felt when I said it. And again, it's my feeling and my perspective on his perspective, so I'm not saying that all mine is right either, but it's just my own personal feeling on it. So he kind of mentioned how he got wrapped up in that type of thing, and then it became more of an ego thing and different things. And then, you know, when he eventually had that spiritual experience with Jesus coming through, it was like Jesus, to me, it was like his initial experience sounded genuine and pure and good, but how he responded to that, he ended up going down a wrong path thereafter. Because sometimes we will have beautiful encounters and we'll have beautiful growth in our spiritual walk, and then our own ego eventually gets in and stuck in there, and we start going down another path. We get our identity in it, we feel our self-worth and our value and our love, and all the unhealed things that we had from our childhood kind of come up in that. If we escalate too quickly up the ladder, sometimes in a spirituality, and not doing the deep inner work with the growth time at the same time, then we get all of this spiritual, and then that's when you become this kind of pious, you know, spiritual, looking down at other people and how you've got it all together and all that kind of thing. So I think my personal perspective is that his first experience seemed to me, from what I've understood that was coming from his experience, was very genuine, in that he most likely encountered with true spirit angel beings, because there was this beautiful, you know, he explained that the peace and the love, and it was just beautiful, right? But then it was the aftermath of the journey he ended up going down with that experience, and then got caught up in the do. I've done this in my life, in my own spiritual walk as a Christian, where you get your identity and your experiences, and then people were looking up at me a lot as a very deeply spiritual person, and looking up to me, but I wasn't dealing with all my shit and my emotions, right? So I would go between such low self-esteem, and then at the same time have like pride in my identity as a Christian, and as a leader and a worship leader, and this and this and that. And so sometimes other people would feel like I had this pice, they could feel it off of me, right? And then so I would go from fluctuations like that I wasn't worth anything to I wasn't whatever. But then because I hadn't dealt with that, when I would have these spiritual experiences and connection with God, or with Jesus, or with the Holy Spirit, sometimes it would go to my head, because I have my kid coming in. I gotta go. It will distract me, and blah, blah, blah. I'll lose my focus again. And then it would go up in my kind of spiritual pride, and I would get my identity out of it. And then next thing you know, it's not such a beautiful experience anymore, because I'm taking it down a wrong road, okay? Getting my identity in it, getting my feelings wrapped in it, and then starting to look down at others because I hadn't healed my own shit, right? And so then, you know, now I'm at a whole other new awakening, right? So for me, it came from being one with the church, that I had that awakening, and I had beautiful moments, and there were true connections with spirit and with Jesus, and you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff. But then, you know, as my journey has continued, I have found the downside in that circle, right? And it's all about the change here. So now my growth is expanded, and I'm seeing the freedom, getting the revelation that it is not about, you know, like how he said, like his new revelation with this encounter with Jesus was, you know, that it's all by grace and not of something that we do. Well, that's truth. Do you see what I'm saying? So he received a revelation through Jesus of that it's by grace. It's not of your own doing. It's not of my own doing that, you know, I'm doing all this inner soul work and this inner work in myself, and trying to work through trauma and healing, cleaning out my energy and getting into that beautiful state more often than I've ever done in my life. I can't take credit for that, because it's been my brokenness and my pain, and I'd never push myself towards this without all of that pain that I have to constantly work through, I would have never chose this road of working on all my shit so intensely as I am now, because every time my emotions are off, every time I get my thinking in the wrong place, or every time I take on stuff, I feel it in my body. So I have to constantly work on changing my energy. And at the same time, I am deepening my walk with spirit on a whole new level. And it has been the most transforming and enlightening time of my entire life. And that has involved me not seeing at Jesus as God. See, in his situation, again, my perspective, in his situation, he had an experience with the Christ, okay? Or with Jesus, as he was known as a man on that planetary time, like back 2,000 years ago, but that was his human name given, right? Which is Joshua, technically in English. But he had his experience with the Christ consciousness, or with Jesus. And, where do you normally think that you would go? I think he said he had Catholic roots. So your automatic thing is, I had an encounter with Jesus, then Christianity, right? So then he goes to those roots because his experience with Jesus was so real and transforming that he went back to a religious type of church system that talks about Jesus, because that's where his transformation was. And then that's where the indoctrination comes in. The learning, okay, oh, he's the only son of God, and he's this and that, and I have to follow this way. And then that indoctrination comes in. So even though the freedom is there because he had that break about, okay, this is all by grace. It's not by what I do. It's not by running after spiritual experiences and like plant medicines and, all of these spiritual things. He's actually seeing that, it's by grace, right? So he's still, in a roundabout way, for me, that was the energy that I felt off of what wasn't sitting right with me right away, because I've been on the different waves throughout my last 50 years. Like I've, just tried so many different things, right? But when I feel that absolution of, no, this is the way, I could feel it right from the beginning of the video. It was a lower, I don't even know if this sounds right, because it probably sounds like over spiritualized, and I don't want it to sound like that way, because sometimes people use terms that sound new agey, and I don't want to come across that. But it was just a lower energy when it's like this, this is the, and for me, it was just something that wasn't settling right in my gut for me. Okay. So what I've seen, like stepping back from this perspective, I've seen that the different experiences that he had, both of them propelled him in a different direction, in a way of growth. So the first experiences he had, he was like, oh, so full of peace. He was passionate. He put his drive towards, but he got caught up in more of the ego side and in do, and then becoming this high and kind of looking, you know what I mean? And then within the Christian faith, he learned another new perspective, or enlightenment, of that it's by grace. It is not by what we do. It is, and it's not even like, it's in letting go of that, what I need to do and perform and be, and just realize that this is all connected back to the source of life. And that source, current perspective with me, is that it's all part of us, right? But we don't get caught up in that ego, and we connect with the source of life. And it's like, you know what? It's not of my own human struggling and merit to be something. It is just learning to release and let go and open myself up to the spirit and the source of life to help me to change and begin to do the inner work on myself. So it's not just out there that all the credit goes there. There is credit here too. And sometimes with religion, it's always all God. It's all God. It's not by grace. It's not by anything that I did, because I'm a sinner and I'm, you know what I mean? There's still that mentality within that. And for me, that doesn't sit right either. It's like, it is not by our human striving, and because that's that negative energy, to strive to be something. It is by actually letting go and becoming in part of that present moment, and allowing the change to begin to come in, and saying, you know what? I don't want to be caught up in ego. I want to be caught up with love and change and growth. And as we begin to let go that it's nothing that we do on our own effort and our own striving to do spiritual things, to become a deeply spiritual person, it's not about that. It's about changing the energy on the inside and cleaning the garbage out and doing the work. That true spirituality begins to just kind of like emanate out of us. And even when we're on this journey, no matter how far we go, we're always going to come face to face with our ego at different points. And there's going to be certain things along the journey that we're going to get off on tangents and going one direction only type of thing. This is the right way. This is the way you've got to do it. This is the way you've got to believe. This is the one way. And that's our human nature, because we have a passion to want to know truth. We want to know truth really, really bad. And so that passion is always to find that one truth. And that's why we have so many tens of thousands and thousands of religions and beliefs and philosophies out there. Everyone thinking they got it. And everyone having different, totally different experiences. Otherwise, other ones can be very similar. But in other circles, they're not seeing Jesus. They might be seeing some guru come to them in a near-death experience or in a vision or in, you know what I mean? And it transforms their life. And one of the things that I kind of learned on my own journey, that I'm just listening to different perspectives and different things, and it resonated with me, is that on the other side, it is so deeply, beyond what we're used to here, right? So, of course, even Jesus, I believe, like personally, I believe that Jesus his consciousness is raised. He's done like a lot of inner work throughout his different, and I'm not going to get into that actually. That's a whole other topic. So, but I believe that people can connect to Jesus and they can pray to Jesus, and that he is still helping us from the other side. And that's the part that religion has right, in my personal perspective. I believe that, because our spirits and our souls continue to live on and we keep growing all the time. But Jesus had come to that place of a Christ consciousness where I believe that he came in here specifically to help shift some of our perspectives in our worldviews and help us bring us to a more elevated elevation to connected with the source of life. And again, it's different perspectives. Like, I believe that we do come back and that we keep working on changing our vibration level so that we get closer and closer to connecting more with source and to that pure essence of who we truly are. But in Jesus's case, he was at a much, most humans, from what I've understood, again, from perspective, is that most of us are at a third level of vibration or density of spirituality. I don't even know what the right words are. I don't have all the terms right, so to speak. But Jesus was probably more at like level 5, 6 or something like that. And he came specifically, yes, to come back, because you don't always have to keep coming back. Once you get to a certain vibration level connecting with spirit, there's other ways that you begin to help. And Jesus kind of got to that level where he came back to help us bring up our vibration level better. Again, vibration level, I don't even think that's the right terms. I just don't know what to use. So but connecting deeper at a deeper level with source. And then, now his job, so to speak, or where he's at and his higher frequency now is to help people from the other side, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that he is God, right? Like, it just means that he's a higher advanced soul being or whatever on the other side. And he is helping us as we raise our own vibration and learn to get, closer and closer to that point where we can continue to grow up, anyways, it's kind of hard for me to explain all of this stuff sometimes. But I don't know if I'm getting off topic. And if I get off topic, sometimes it's a little bit harder to remember exactly what my last point was. But anyways, all that said, I think this video is going to be too long to upload now, so I might have to upload it to YouTube for you and put it on maybe unlisted, unless we decide to share it publicly. I don't know, but unlisted, and I can send you the link, and then you'll be able to watch it from there. But anyways, hopefully that helps a little bit with what my perspective is on that video that you shared with me. And so to me, it's not about, oh, you know, he got the right religion. It is Christianity after all. You know what I mean? I think Christianity has a lot to offer on the topic, but Christianity gets into that one worldview. This is the one way. This is how you get there. You have to believe Jesus died and rose for your rose again and paid for your sins so that you could connect with God. I don't accept that type of view anymore for me personally, because it doesn't make sense that a loving, all forgiving God, that in the scriptures Jesus would say that he said, love your enemies, do good to those who hurt you and despitefully use you and persecute you, and pray for them and do good to them. Love your enemies. But then at the same time, you read in another portion of scripture where it says that God can't forgive us unless there's bloodshed, right? So in the Old Testament, animals were constantly sacrificed and killed just so God's anger didn't like consume us all. I thought God was all merciful and all loving, right? And then there were certain nations in the Old Testament that were literally wiped out. God said, go in there, kill everything. Animals, children, women, everything. All men. Whether you're evil or not, kill them all. Genocide. And so you have a God in the Old Testament commanding genocide and then destroying kingdoms or nations or whatever. And he would say, go and commit genocide to these nations because they are doing what is detestable in my eyes, and they are causing their children to pass through their fire, meaning human sacrifice, child sacrifices to their god Baal, Moloch, or whatever. And so God was literally telling the Israelites to wipe out certain nations because they were committing human sacrifices to their gods. And he said, this is an abhorrence to me. But not only is there the point that he is commanding genocide, which is the death of innocent children that have never committed a crime or a sin. They didn't even have something to pay for, okay? And if I rewind again, even again, there's two different scriptures in the Old Testament. One of them will say that the children are not to pay for the sins of their parents. And then there's another scripture that will contradict that very thing and say the children shall pay for the sins of their parents up to 7 generations. Well, which one is it? Anyways, all that to say, what was the ultimate sign in the Bible of God's love for us, to forgive us? It was using the prime example in the Old Testament that God said, this is an abhorrence to me, and if you do this in that nation, it's going to be totally wiped out. Everything is going to be killed. It was human sacrifice. But what was that exact example that God used as the prime example of his love? It was human sacrifice. Why would an all-loving God that says, love your enemies, do good to those who use you and persecute you, and pray for those who despitefully use you, and he wasn't following those very words? He couldn't forgive and love and forgive us as his children without killing or murdering something or someone else? An ultimate God of love and compassion is not going to use such things to show his love. Pure love is pure. It's genuine. It's beautiful. And when you start using horrific horrific things as an example of love, you have to see the contradiction in that, right? So that's where Christianity cannot work for me, because the very scriptures within the text itself constantly contradict each other. When you read the whole story, it doesn't make sense. But when you read just the words of Jesus, there's different ways that you can look at that too, right? That he is trying to connect us and saying that we are, one. We are, we are one with God, right? And I'm not going to get into all of that. If you want to research that again a little bit deeper, Aaron Abke has a lot of video stuff on that particular subject. Again, like, I take certain things that I hear, I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, especially his teachings on Paul's teachings versus Jesus' teachings. If you check out that video by Aaron Abke, so Abke is spelled Abke, and just Google his video on the difference between Paul's teachings and Jesus's teachings, and you'll see what I'm talking about in regards to that. Again, further contradictions. What Jesus actually taught was his gospel, and what Paul taught as his gospel was totally different than what Jesus taught. And it's Paul's teachings that have gotten perpetuated by the church and within Christianity. And the teachings are completely on a whole different perspective than what Jesus actually taught himself. So there's a lot of reasons why, like that. For me personally, I can't accept the view of what this guy is saying fully. I think he had a lot of great points, though. That things are by grace, and to connecting with pure spirit is not about finding all the things that we have to do to become better, to like escalate our spirituality, but learning to realize, it's by grace. We can't take this as personal pride, and grace is just something freely given, right? Something that we're working on, God, spirit, universe, whatever people want to call it, the Holy Spirit, the Great Spirit, nature, whatever that is. To me, I like referring to God as the source of life, because it comes without all of the religious indoctrination and everything like that comes with religious. Soon as you say God, immediately people are all trying to figure out what God means to them in light of their religious beliefs or what they were taught or indoctrinated to believe. So anyways, this is a long video for a simple text message that you sent me in regards to this video and asking me, or just basically saying, okay, this was an interesting perspective. And so this is my reply as a critique on the video, or as, I don't know if critique is the right word, but my personal perspective on it. And whether you share the same perspective as me, or the same perspective as this guy in the video, or the perspective of somebody else, that's not really the point, as it is that we just continue to be open and learning and growing. It's okay to hear different perspectives. When I first started listening to the video, my first thing is, I could tell where this is going, and it just didn't sit well with my gut. And my first reaction, because I've been indoctrinated most of my life within the Christian church, it was my everything and all for over 33 and a half years. So, going through that journey that I've gone through the past number of years, it's all started back in 2008, I guess. And then, I'm going to go into a whole other story, but that whole change, sometimes when I see certain things, like, we're going to get into this one way thing, I can't swallow that pill anymore. It just doesn't make sense to love. And to, here it's just like, what, the source of life, different religions, different people are trying to find their way. And that's the main thing, that source, or that we're looking for, is we're each trying to find our way to navigate through this life the best way that we can, that is pure and honest, and to connect with the source of life, and to clean out our shit, so to speak, clean out all the garbage, and allow a purity to just to begin to flow through us, and that we can be genuine in our experiences, And when we see ego rise up, that we like, okay, you know what? No, no, no. Like, for example, in my own case, could I say, oh, people say sometimes, like, your energy is so clear. I mean, my energy is not always clear all the time. I have my days where my energy is not good, you know? And I have to constantly work on that. But the thing that has really brought me to that place is the fact that I had to go through so much chronic pain, you know? Starting with a whiplash that I didn't know I had, and then that flaring up, and then it turned into chronic pain where the brain kept turning on the pain and not shutting it off. And then after so many years of having chronic pain and seeing over 12 different physical therapists, and no one really knew how to help me or what was going on, other than I have a few ones that would say, okay, you got central nervous system sensitization, but they never really explained it, and I didn't know what in the heck was going on. And then I started having physical anxiety and emotional anxiety. And then my son, 16 years of old age, passed away. And then I started having stress illness. And then, I started, psychogenic seizures started to take place every now and then. Not epileptic seizures, big difference. But, so all of this stuff started coming up in my nervous system. And so the last 3 years, within these 10 years, is when I've had to be very proactive on changing my energy, cleaning out the garbage, learning how to process through emotions, understanding what my brain and why my nervous system is high and why the brain is so flippin' wired, and thinking it has to be in fight and protect mode all the time. And then realizing, oh my gosh, it's because my entire life I spent storing emotions inside my body, not processing through. And a part of my religious upbringing, I thank source for the upbringing that I had within the church all my life, because it really helped protect me, because I was so super sensitive to things. So that really helped protect me. I didn't get, go through a lot of the heartbreaks that some people did. I was very active in the church, and that was very beneficial to my life. But it also ingrained certain things that weren't healthy, the carnal had always constantly fight against the carnal nature of the flesh and die to self, and, a sinful for nature, and God just couldn't love me. He had to sacrifice his son so that I could, not have to go to burn in hell for eternity, and all of that stuff. And then the stuff that was going on in my own home, and my difficulties connecting with other people my age, because I had ADHD, and not being able to connect, and trying to figure out why I didn't have a lot of friends. People thought I was too hyper or too outgoing, or I was very naive, didn't understand a lot of basic things that most people knew about life. I mean, I was 19 before I found out a baby doesn't come out my butthole. I was 12 before I found out that babies just don't come along whenever. So there was a lot of stuff that I ended up storing into my nervous system. And then I had that chronic pain, or the whiplash, and then the chronic pain that set in like 20 years later when the whiplash flared up that I never realized I had. And then it just began. So I had to do so much friggin' research. And then at the end, I had a brain specialist physiotherapist that deals specifically with the pain of the brain. And she basically told me that unless you change, nothing's gonna change, and then she gave me like a really good explain, like she broke it all down, helped me to understand. And I won't go into that whole next level, of course, because I've told you a good amount of it as well. But that is what perpetuated me to this journey, because even when I was taken on as a case study, and I was, given my life back so I could manage my pain. All my pain, when I was done the case study, just wanted to come back full force again. And I'm like, I have to stay on top of this. I have to keep processing through my pain. I got to keep practicing mindfulness. I got to keep practicing learning to come into the present moment, not stressing about the past and the future. And, doing grounding and cognitive therapy and self-talk and like all of this stuff. I've had to, because I feel everything in my body. So when the ego wants to come up, it's like a reminder, yeah, you never would have chose going this hardcore to work on yourself. All those years in the church, you wanted to, but you wanted everyone else to love you and heal you to a stable state. Here, I really, 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 really had to do the work because everything was coming out of my nervous system and still is very high. So it's a constant, constant work in progress. But there's that part where it's like, okay, can I take credit for all this? I mean, yeah, I mean, we can take credit for the hard work we put in. That's okay. But when we get a prideful thing where we kind of look like, yeah, I'm extra spiritual and what about you? That's when it's, it's just not good, and it causes a whole other negative thing. So, anyways, I've got to close off this 35-minute video. It should have only been 10 minutes, but I have a tendency of talking a lot. So at this point, there is no way this is going to send through Facebook Messenger to you, my dear friend. So I am going to upload it to YouTube, and I may as well just share it publicly. And I might actually put a link in the description in regards to the video I'm referring to. And people can listen to my video, they can listen to his video, they can listen to other videos and come to your own perspective. There's no one full 100% way of this is the right way. The way I'm going to end it is the analogy that I heard once that made the most sense to me. And that was God, or as I like to call him, the source of life, or he, she, no gender, the source of life has a mirror that is truth. The mirror was the truth, and he had it up in the sky, and he dropped it on the earth, and it shatters into thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces. And everyone runs around grabbing a piece, picking it up. Oh, I've got the truth. I've got the truth. I've got the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth. And yes, it is truth. But it's only until we all bring our pieces together, hear different perspectives, hear different experiences, hear different, and it's when we bring all those pieces together that we start seeing the real picture of what truth really is, and it's not this one piece or these one or a couple different pieces. It's all of us that have a desire and passion for truth and love and wanting to change and grow. As we bring our pieces together and put it together, we begin to see the full picture. And even then, I think even when we cross to the other side, we will never have the full truth. Even the other side, to me, in my opinion, is growing and changing constantly, because we're always going to be growing and changing and evolving. And that's what I like about this new perspective. It's like science and spirituality together. Evolution is still in the process, not just here on this planet, but when we cross over too. And so even sometimes when people on this side are tapping into whatever on the other side, they've also got to understand that those same beings and different things are also growing and changing on the other side. They might be at a higher growth level than we are, and they could be significantly higher than where we're at, but they are still growing and changing and evolving too. Because the ultimate source of life is always going to be the fullness, right? And everything that extends from that, all of life, all people, all life forms, is all God incarnating on the earth. It's all God. It's all like, I like how Aaron Abke used it again. He said, God, or the source of life, is like the sun. And we are all part of God. God's essence is in us, but we're not God. Like sometimes you might hear like more strong New Agey type of teachings. We're not God itself, but we are. But the analogy works best as when you think of the sun or the source of life is God. And the rays that come out from it to extend into life and to experiment. I wonder what it's like to feel this. It's like God experiencing itself through itself, right? So those rays are still God coming from the sun, but they're not the source God. They are an extension of God coming out. And that's the way I liked it best. So anyways, that's my perspective. Do with it as you may, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So love to you, my friend, and hopefully that helps, as we're both been on a very similar journey. And love you, Jojo. Bye.